All right, guys, here we are back. Another episode of the Gospel of Fire, and I am here, man, with somebody I've known for a long time. We've like met around like the UFC, and I think you came on Tough when I was on a competitor on Tough, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Tony Blauer. How are you, man?
I'm good, buddy. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. What's your shirt say?
Oh,
Spear University. All right, hell yeah.
Yeah.
How's life, man? What have you been up to?
Wow. Well, I don't even. So we met on Tough. I don't remember. That was the year that
We met right before Tough. Because you came to Albuquerque when I was an up and comer,
right,
with all that gear.
with my high gear.
I hate you for this, man. Because I was a low little guy at the, like, not that I was ever a big guy, like
right.
I was never big time, but like I was definitely like not in the UFC then. So like Rashad and Keith used to make me put that gear on and just beat the fuck out of me. And I was like, God. And then like I would get like a 2-minute turn, right? Like, I got scrub time. So I hated you for a long time, man.
Funny, because we just got some new prototypes, not prototypes, some new versions of it.
All right.
So we originally designed the gear for. My main business is training military and law enforcement. Okay. And so we designed it for force on force stuff. And then actually this is a crazy story. On the very, very first fight, Ray helped train his guys. And that's slowly how it, you remember Evan Tanner, of course. So Evan actually was a big fan of our training protocols. I didn't even know him. I didn't know he was in MMA. And he bought gear on his own, was training with Randy, showed it to him. Randy started doing stuff with it. And then years later, I never even knew about it. I never even watched the first season. I never even knew about it. Years later, I have a meeting with Randy and I'm building up. I go, listen, I've got this gear that allows you to drop elbows, that can allow you to, ground and pound. Because there's things that you can't practice in street defense, self-defense, or MMA because it just fuck people's faces up and heads up. You've got to pull certain things at certain phases of training.
It's even hard to do the elbow, even like mimic the elbow. Because if the guy moves a little bit and you're like flashing the elbow and then, man, now he's got a cut on his head.
Well, this is the whole thing. So I'm building this stuff up for Randy, and I'm going, man, I got to show you stuff. Because you can literally now take a let's say you had a fight coming up, but you wanted to practice stuff. You could put the helmet on as a fighter and watch shit come in there and not worry about your nose getting broken or your eye getting cut.
Yeah, it was good defensively as well.
Yeah. So you get to see, it's almost like being able to be inside of the tornado and not really worry about the tornado. And so I'm telling him all about this, and I've got it in my bag, and he's going, well, show me the gear already. So I zip it open.
I remember you with these big black duffel bags like you were carrying a body, man. Like when you came to Albuquerque, you had like 10 bags that you just rolled in.
I think we gave Greg like 6 suits, and then I think a year or two later they were stolen when they had a robbery.
The 505, baby. The 505.
That might have been you. You were like, fuck this high gear.
Fuck this high gear. Right. I'm like, man, we got to get rid of this shit.
And it's so funny that we're talking about this because when I opened the bag up, Randy goes, I pull out the helmet and he goes, that's your gear? He says, I already use it. I was like, what? He says, he said, Evan gave it to me. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's a crazy story. So how did you, where did you get into all of this, man?
So I grew up in Canada. And in Montreal, I actually this is even for you're giving me.
Are you Canadian? Are you born?
I'm a U.S. citizen now.
Okay.
I'm a U.S. citizen now.
But you were born Canada.
Originally a Canadian, and grew up in Montreal. And it was funny. So before St. Pierre became Rush St. Pierre, he was a Kyokushinkai
Shotokan
karate guy.
Yeah.
And he would come in. There was a class, so we trained at TriStar. And back in the day, TriStar had like this eclectic setup. I was a well-known street defense instructor. So Conrad Pla used to be the owner back then, and Conrad was a big Thai guy. And so there was me, and then there was a Kyokushinkai guy. There was a grappling guy. There was it was really eclectic. And George used to come in for class, and he knew me because I was in my first black belt magazine in 1980. So I've been in like all these magazines.
How old are you?
How old do I look? I actually turned 59 this year. Is that fucking insane?
Fuck yeah, man. You look good for 59 years old. Holy shit. 1980, the only reason I asked is because 1980 is when I was born.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because there's a lot of people who don't understand what we do. And so they'll be online going, yeah, I never seen you in the UFC. What do you know about this? And I'm like, dude, I've been teaching people longer than you've been alive. Just have some respect. You can disagree with me.
Right.
That's cool. But just have a little respect for how long, I've been studying violence for over 40 years. But anyways, I got to tell you a story. So St. Pierre used to come in. I'd be going in my class, and St. Pierre would come in. Before, he'd never done anything. He'd be in a white gi, and he'd look at me and he'd go, Sensei Blauer. And he'd walk by me, and it was so funny. And then to watch, and I've got pictures of where I was taking gear. You remember Dave Loiseau and how insane his elbows were. I'm not going to take credit for it, but I gave him and George elbow pads and gear, and they just fucking drill the shit out of this.
Dude, they had the best. I mean, so outside of like Randy, like traditional wrestlers, like it's really crazy now that you met, like that you kind of talk about it. Like, yeah, those guys that got to practice, like really dropping an elbow on someone's face, got really ninja at it.
Well, but that's the whole thing. Is the only way to get good at anything is to do reps. And I just actually did a post on scenario training. I'll send you the link to it. I just did it on my Instagram, and I tell people, like, here are the 2 rules when we're doing a scenario training course for anybody. And even MMA is scenario training, right? Like I worked with Mir for a few days before he fought Nogueira. Okay. And I brought in our protocol. I brought in our gear. There's pictures of this stuff online on our page.
I remember you came on the show. So yeah, you were there for a little bit.
But
then you came back.
This is him working privately with him before his Nogueira fight.
Right.
And what we did was I had his sparring partner replicate. I said, look at what Nogueira does before he shoots for the double leg. He does something very unique with his jab and something with his head movement. And I got this idea where, so in 1980, I got to spend time with Sugar Ray Leonard in Montreal. Leonard fought Duran in Montreal. You guys remember boxing? Anybody on this show remember boxing? That is just with your hands, just so you know. As a joke. That's an MMA joke. It's just, people are like, boxing, what's that? It's like, Google boxing. So I remember, hanging out with Leonard, and when he would go spar. Are
you a boxing fan?
Oh,
by the way, huge. Me too. Did you watch Lomachenko last weekend?
I did not. I actually had food poisoning last weekend, and I've never been hit like this before. It was insane.
Oh God, I'm sorry. All right. So anyway, go ahead. Back. You were with Leonard in Montreal.
So I'm with Leonard in Montreal, 1980, and I'm a student of everything. I study shit. I'm always trying to get better, trying to learn stuff. And when Leonard's sparring partners came out, they all wore a white shirt with red cuffs, and it all said in red letters on the back, Duran. And they would spar, and they'd have a shirt on and said Duran, and they were paid. And I noticed this right away. None of them moved how they moved as a natural athlete. They were all told, and I use the term replicate, not simulate, because I like how the specificity of that. They were told to replicate how, Duran would move. So Leonard would, and this is like decades before neuroscience and mirror neurons and neurotransmitters and myelinization, how you practice things. And this is what we bring to our training, is understanding like the neuroscience of practice and the neuroscience of fear and the neuroscience of what it does to your body. And so you can see, like, if you look at somebody warming up in the changing room and you go, this guy looks like a badass. And then he walks out to the octagon or the ring and suddenly he's like moving really different. And that's the neuroscience of fear. That's your reptilian brain hijacking your executive function. What you thought you were going to do and how you were going to feel and behave wasn't addressed, and you didn't simulate that. You didn't create that adaptation in training. And those are what the great coaches are able to do versus the less.
So how do you, I mean, I know I'm going to ask a divergent question, maybe, like, dude, how do you replicate the fear? Because holy shit, man, like I'm just not that scared in practice.
Yeah. If you're, well, some people, you're saying you're not afraid in practice, right?
I'm not possibly walking. Like when I used to go out to fight, right? Like I had to get good with death, right? Like this could be it, right? Like you have to get in the mindset of, okay, if this is my last 15 minutes, then this is my last 15 minutes. Fuck it. Let's go. So you don't do that at practice.
Right. So there's practice, there's training. I break things down in micro moments. The fear doesn't have to be the fear of the violence. So if you think back the first time you walked, and you may be an anomaly and an outlier. So let's not. Okay. So what I mean by that is there are some people that are very comfortable with violence, and then there are people who aren't. So if you can think back to the first time you went into a gym to spar, or the first time you went into a gym to look it up.
Yeah, I was petrified.
Well, there you go. So what happens is this is called stress inoculation. The danger is like over time. So it goes like this, it peaks. You're like, holy shit. Then you get a little, and here's the thing is like when you would spar people that you knew you could take, you were like a genius, right? You're fucking, like doing wushu, doing doing whatever you want.
Yeah. I look like the Matrix.
Right. And then if you sparred somebody who you knew you had to really watch for because it could go 50-50, then you were like really in the zone. And if you sparred somebody who you knew could just like drop you or tap you out like this, you started to get those butterflies again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So
Wayne Ludwig, bro. Holy shit. Oh, God. Of all the people I ever sparred, that was the worst.
So, yeah. And I met him down in Albuquerque too there.
Yeah.
So So there are certain people where, and you don't even, so a lot of this, man, ties to self-awareness. So my big thing when I work with athletes and coaches is trying to cultivate self-awareness. And I'll talk about like fear. Fear doesn't have to be, I'm afraid of getting hit or I'm afraid of losing. There are people who sabotage their success because they're afraid of winning, right? And so there's like some people suffer from an imposter syndrome that psychobabble calls it, right? Am I really this good? Do I deserve this? And all that stuff. And these are all valid things if they get in the way of how you perform in life. I was on, I don't know if you know personally, Kieran Fitzgibbons from CSA, Combat Sports Academy. So Kieran trained with me like years ago when he was just doing Krav Maga and he was a martial artist, but he was in the protective services side of stuff, doing some stuff for some big corporations and stuff, bodyguard work. And he trained with me then, and we've been friends for like 20 plus years. And so he actually brought me on. He was on Ultimate Fighter 2 years ago.
Yeah, he coached with Henry Cejudo against Joe.
Right. Yeah. So he brings me on to talk about fear. But that season, everybody was like a world champion, right? Like everybody was like, so everyone had cauliflower ears and scars on their faces. Nobody was afraid of fighting. If you get to that level, so I get up there and I've got like 3 minutes to make some shit happen, right? And most of my stuff got cut, but it was I said, okay, let's talk about fear and let's talk about mindset. How many of you experienced some fear before your fight? And there were 12 guys, I think. All of them are sitting there like you with your arms crossed, sitting, leaning against the cage. They're all like this, dude. They all go like this.
Man, I have to say, for me, the best, as a competitor on The Ultimate Fighter, what was the most interesting thing is I got to see everyone else be afraid because you're in the house with them.
Right.
It's interesting that those guys are all like, no, I'm not afraid. We're like, I don't know. I had a different experience. Like it actually calmed me down a little bit because I was like, oh shit, I am watching my opponent that I'm going to go fight here in a couple hours be afraid as well. Like, I don't know, it made me feel better. But anyway, they're standing there with their arms crossed like no fucking way.
Yeah. But so here's a gift that you have, and it's why you're doing a podcast and why you talk about deep things. Because you have self-awareness, because you're trying to evolve. Like there are some people that that you could walk up to them and go, hey man, I notice you look, because body language is 60% of communication.
Sure.
So, if you're here, you're on your phone or you're looking or you're biting your nails and someone goes, hey, you okay? Most guys, especially alpha males, fighters, will go, yeah, what's up, man? But like inside, and I remember telling one of my fighters this, before his fight, I said to him, hey, Sean, how do you feel? It was like he's already wrapped, he's warming up, and I'm sitting there. It's a kickboxing match in Montreal back in the day. And he's fighting one of Jean-Yves Thériault's students. I don't know if you remember the name of Jean-Yves Thériault. Okay. So, world champion, great fighter. So I said, how do you feel? And he goes, and this is actually an interesting story for the fight crowd. Yeah. I said, how do you feel? He goes, he says, good, coach. I'm nervous, but, I'm good. I said, well, you're supposed to be fucking nervous. You're about to get in a fight. Remember, the guy standing in front of you, whatever he looks like, and is back in the kickboxing day, and Duran, I said, right. It looked like Hands of Stone, Roberto Duran, but inside his heart is pounding, butterflies in his stomach. He's got the same physiological concerns. He's getting ready for a violent encounter. And he's just going to show you his facade like you're going down, motherfucker. And right. He looks at me, goes, thanks, coach. And he goes back and he's moving around, and he's dancing around. And I'm sit down, Eliot, and I sit down and something starts nagging at me. And I was like, and I realized I'd given him like a line out of a B boxing movie, like a script from, you got him, kid, cut me, Rocky. Like it was like, and I stand up, I go, hey, Sean. I got to apologize for my answer. He goes, why? Like that really calmed me down. I said, yeah, but I didn't ask you what you were afraid of. In my mind, what had happened in the nano moment in that 5 seconds as an introspective coach, was he afraid because his girlfriend was ringside? His mom was watching for the first time. Did he have an injury that he didn't tell me about because he didn't want me to pull him out of the fight, right? Was he sick? Did he not sleep all night? And so when I coach coaches now, I talk to them about this because being able to address the specific fear changes the performance. It releases some of the pressure. And this is why it made me think about it, is when you were around the house, a bunch of other people didn't notice everyone was afraid because they were so selfishly concerned about their fear. You noticed it and turned that into a release for you where you went, oh, fuck. I'm human, they're human. Okay, let's go. It just lowered your anxiety about the fight a little. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So with Sean, I looked at him, I said, Sean, I got to apologize for the answer. He says, no, it's great. I go, but I didn't ask you what you're afraid of. What exactly are you afraid of? He said, it's stupid. It doesn't matter, right? And I go, well, no, it's not stupid. What is it? If it's making you think about it and giving you some stress, it's not stupid. He goes, so amateur kickboxing is 3 rounds. When you fight for the title, it's 4 rounds in Canada. I don't know what it is here, if it's the same. So he goes, I've done 10 rounds. I'm in shape, but I've never done, this is my first 4-round fight. It's my first title fight. And I just don't know if I have the gas to do that. I mean, I think I do, but it's just like, it's stupid, coach. Don't worry about it. I'm fine. I looked at him and I said, let me ask you a question. He goes, what? I said, can you do 2 rounds? He goes, yeah, of course. I said, so just do 2 rounds twice. And he looks at me and he smiles just like you did. He went, I can fucking do that. Literally, and in a kickboxing match, 16-foot ring, 1 foot inside, you're 14 feet away from the other corner. After the second round, I'm squirting water in his mouth and I go, dude, can you do 2 rounds? He goes, yes, coach, right? It was breaking. It was having the insight to break the challenge up into attainable goals. So if I say, hey, go run for a mile, and you go, fuck, a mile. I go do 4 400s, right? Anyone not good at math, 4 400s is a mile. If you break the challenge up, and I've had guys go, I don't know if I got enough gas to do this last round. I said, can you give me a minute? I go, yeah. So do a minute 3 times. It's
so crazy.
You do that.
I do this, right? But everyone's always wondering about, like, it's a common fear, getting tired.
Right.
Right. And for me, I mean, I look at it a little different. You tell me what you think. I look at it as, look, you can always do right now. You're never concerned about this very moment because you're fucking doing it.
Right.
The anxiety comes from, you're like, man, I can't do this. I can't do this in 5 minutes. well, man, you don't even know if you're going to be here in 5 minutes. Like the whole world could come to an end.
Right.
You know, and I kind of take this approach where all you have to do is now. Don't worry about a minute. If you just do now to the best of your ability, you just keep doing now. There is no such thing as the future. We just it's an unknown, and you can't ever worry about it. I'm a stoic. Right. So all we have is the present moment.
Right.
So just stay right there. Just give me 1 minute is what I say. Can you do a minute? And they always say, yes, I can always do a minute. Well, then good. You just keep giving me 1 minute.
Yeah. I dig it. Philosophically, spiritually, I dig that. Strategically and tactically, if we're like planning out, we might have to reset. But in terms of that emotional moment where the person is thinking about quitting.
Right. When you're in the round, in between the second and the third round, and they're like, oh my God, you're like, look, you don't have to give me 5 minutes. I just need a minute.
Right.
You know, break it down.
Break it down into consumable bites of movement and thought, and you're much better. Yeah, I tell people, listen, we've got a multiple assailant course, and I go, would you rather fight one person or 3 people? And they're like, well, 1 person. I go, well, actually, fighting 3 people is easier than fighting 1 person in terms of the complexity and the chaos, but you don't know that until you understand that. But you're never going to fight 3 people. You're going to fight 1 person 3 times. You got to break it down into, you're not going to go hi and hit every, this isn't a shitty kung fu movie. Right. But the idea here is if you've overcome your fear of a mono thing, and now there's 2 guys, now what's happening is your unconscious mind is going, oh fuck, there's 2 of them. And you're thinking about, like you said, in an unstoic way, you're thinking about the future. You're going to take care of shit right now. Yeah, man. So we were on the Roberto Duran story. Like, did it start for you before this? Because you were an adult in 1980, right? Like, yeah, 20 years old then. Yeah. Where did all this, what did you call it earlier? The business of violence. You've been studying violence. I grew up in the 60s, and I grew up in middle-class suburbia, and it was not a violent. Was that in Canada? Or was that here in the U.S.? Yeah. No, it was in Canada. Okay. I only moved when did you come to the U.S.? 2007. I moved to Virginia Beach. Okay. I was there for 2.5 years. I had some nasty shit, home invasion, lost a $12 million company, stolen from me. And just really in 2010, it was like the end of the world. And moved to, I remember my wife sitting on the floor crying. We had our green cards. What are we going to do? We're moving back to Canada. And I was speaking at a counterterrorism conference in San Diego. And I said, buy tickets. We're going to go out to San Diego and look for a place to live. She's like, what the fuck? And I said, if we're going to be homeless, let's be homeless in San Diego. I heard the weather's amazing most of the time here. Right. So we moved out here in 2010 and rebuilt everything. But I grew up in the 60s, man, in a nice area. I grew up watching the original Green Hornet with Bruce Lee, watching the original Wild Wild West with Robert Conrad, and Mannix, and all these shows where everyone was doing like shit fighting, like really choreographed. And I was fascinated with the fighting, but I felt like I had the most fear in the world. I felt as a kid, I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of my shadow. I was afraid my shadow was afraid of another shadow. I was a good athlete. Whatever I did, I wrestled, I was gymnastics, I skied, but I'd ski, and I got very good at as a competitive skier. And by the time I was 13, there were people thinking, hey, if I can continue on this trajectory, this kid's going to represent Canada in the Olympics. I mean, I was competing in freestyle and giant slalom but everything I did, I sabotaged my success at, because I was always afraid to win. I would always visualize, like, I'd start off something and I'd be like, okay, I hope I don't wipe out here, as opposed to, wow, like, I see that line, I'm going to fucking crush this. Yeah, I was the same way. Yeah. And it really bothered me so much. And then you wipe out though, right? Not all the time. In competition, I always did. And I tell this story. It's funny because I do a corporate seminar now called No Fear. You remember the t-shirts, No Fear? T-shirt, the company. Yeah. So I do a seminar called, I should have worn, I'll send you one of them. It's kind of badass. It's spelled KNOW, fear. No fear. Oh, it's this shit, Tony. That's fucking badass. Like, because that's what you got to do. Right. You need to cultivate a different relationship and realize that fear can be a superpower. Fear can be a fuel to supercharge what you got to do.
So I suffer from anxiety disorder.
Okay.
You know, like I have terrible anxiety, and I used to always want it to go away, and now I love it. Like I don't love it when it's like really bad in that moment.
Just accept it, embrace it.
I just say, all right, how long are you gonna, like I call it my devil. How long are you gonna fucking hang, devil? Like how long are you gonna be with me?
Yeah,
it's cool. I ain't scared. You know, like I might be scared, but I'm gonna know you really, really well, in and out.
Yeah.
It's really cool. No fear. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
K or W. Yeah. And it's
send me a shirt. I'm going to send you my book. You send me a shirt. I wrote a book about like anxiety disorder. So yeah,
cool.
We'll switch.
Very cool. Yeah. And you know, what's crazy is I had a neck injury 2 years ago. I got a neck injury in '86. I blocked a shin kick with my head.
How'd that go?
The guy's shin was okay.
Yeah.
I looked at him right after. I said, "Is your shin okay?" But it gave me this wicked stinger and developed, like, I had neck pain for 36 years. And then a couple of years ago, I was getting some work done, and the nerve got damaged and impacted my trigeminal and facial nerve. And it put pressure on my vagus nerve. So I would I've never had anxiety in my life. I would be standing there talking, and all of a sudden it'd be like a train was running through me. It would because the vagus nerve is all tied to that. And because of the shift in my neck and the pressure from the injury, like I'd turn my head and something would move just slightly. And all of a sudden I would go from like 0 to 100, where I could be driving and I have to pull over and jump out of my car and go, holy fuck, and it was insane. I mean, anxiety is no joke.
What'd you do for that?
I learned how to fucking meditate and breathe.
Yeah.
And it was scary for a while. I started studying neuroplasticity in the mind and just trying to understand more. And it's weird because as a martial artist I'm 59, so I've been in some sort of combatives martial arts since I'm 7 is when I started wrestling. So my aerobic capacity was always really, really good, right? But I still didn't know how to breathe, like in terms of like deliberate, intentional breathing, like you learn. So fortunately, I know some cool people, and Brian McKenzie, who does the Art of Breath, is a good friend of mine. So he counseled me a little bit and had me do some stuff, but literally within 3 or 4 days of understanding how to breathe properly, my anxiety didn't go away, but I got it completely under control, which was an amazing thing. But having said all that,
it's amazing when, go ahead. Yeah. It's amazing when you get that under control, right? Like it doesn't go away. That's all I do is I breathe. When it hits me.
Yeah. And I'll do a few different breathing protocols. And a lot of it it's like getting good at martial arts, man. It's getting good at jiu-jitsu or MMA or anything is you got to do something every day. So like every morning, like I'll do some breathing and meditation before I get out of bed. And I do it almost every night. And what it does, it becomes so if I feel something coming on, and this is also like parallels the way I teach self-defense is like, if you practice, you remember the 10,000 hours metaphor?
Yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell made that really famous. But the guy who did the original research was a guy named Erickson. And of course, Macklemore made it really famous when he put it in. Nobody gets that joke, the Macklemore joke. Okay. He used it he's got a song called 10,000 Hours.
Okay.
But anyhow, the notion for everyone listening, if you don't know it, it's just this idea. So what some people did is they studied whether it was the Beatles or musicians or experts, athletes, that people who invested 10,000 consistent hours or 10 years or reps and stuff mastered that shit. And like that's a logical conclusion. If you do anything for 10 hours diligently, you're going to get fucking good at it. So, one of my maxims for our training is be careful what you practice. You might get really good at the wrong thing. In other words, you better think about, is this a skill set that I want? And so in terms of self-defense, a lot of people practice like how to get out of moves, like how to counter shit. Well, if you do 10,000 reps of how to get out of a headlock, you by default need to do 10,001 reps letting somebody put a headlock on you. So you're always doing one extra, the brain always sees one extra rep. So we need to be careful. And I tell people, this is very subtle in how you design scenario training and how you design sparring practice. If you're doing the replication stuff, like the idea that I got from Duran.
Yeah.
And so, I know we're telling 3 stories at once.
No,
here.
it's all good. This is how podcasts go, right? You just you go off on tangents.
Like for people interested in more of the combative side, when I want to bring back, I want to like switch channels, go back to the Duran. Yeah. Years later, one of my students, 1980, the same year that I met Leonard, one of my students got his ass kicked in a fight, and I had been teaching him. This is 1980, right? 13 years before the first UFC. I was teaching him intuitively, I was heavily inspired by Bruce Lee. I was teaching him some wrestling, some Taekwondo, which was my original martial art, and some boxing, which I'd fallen in love with and started training. So I was teaching him a hybrid MMA, right? There was no MMA in terms of our culture.
There was no such thing. Sure.
Right.
Go ahead.
And so we're doing this thing, and he's in school. He gets into confrontation with the guy. My student grabs the guy who had been emotionally abusing him for months, and goes and the guy shoved him that day. And my student Mitch grabs him and goes, "Don't fucking touch me again, motherfucker!" And they're doing the guy thing, right? Fuck you. And all of a sudden, the guy drops him with a left hook. Anyone watching this show, I know that was a right hook. Don't write in and say Tony said left hook and he used his right hand. And so the kid's 15 years old. I'm at the time 20 years old, doing private lessons. And I come to his house for private lesson, and he's fucking furious. And you could see like in a cartoon, the smoke coming out of his fucking motherfucker. I go, what happened? Calm down. And he goes, he says, I was running and the guy tripped me and I got up and we started swearing at each other, and I grabbed him and I slammed him against the locker bank, and I said, don't fucking ever trip me again. Leave me alone. He says, and then he dropped me with a left hook. I said, and? Like, why did the Karate Kid hadn't come out yet? But I said, essentially, why didn't you do wax on, wax off? I was like, why didn't you parry? Why didn't you block? Why didn't you slip? And he goes like this. He goes, you get this. He's standing here like this. He goes, well, I was holding my school books in my hand and I was holding him like that. So there's a thing called the cross-extensor reflex in your body. And this is super important when you've got stuff in your hand. If you have a micro flinch, if somebody does something that makes you flinch, whatever you're holding, you lock onto. So he was on the guy's shirt, fuck you, and he's holding his school books, and the guy went wham, and he throws a punch. Your body will lock up on whatever you're holding. So that's why he got dropped. But I didn't know any of this neuroscience and physiology back then. But what I did realize, and I tell people, it was like the god of self-defense fucking hit me with a lightning bolt right there. And I was like, oh my God, I was teaching this kid self-defense wrong. We teach self-defense wrong because I was only teaching him what my instructors had taught me. And that is this compartmentalized block training. When he does this, you do that. But action's faster than reaction. If the bad guy moves first, you're fucked in terms of the physics. And so what I did right away there is I said, grab your books, and we replicated it. We reverse engineered it. And the big thing that I'm telling everybody here, and this applies to sport training and personal defense, is you need to start thinking and moving at the first pre-contact cue. You can't wait for the move. And the brain works like a hard drive, right? So I can take 2 martial artists out, and I do this all the time as a demo of this principle in a seminar. I'll go, who here knows how to get out of a headlock? And everyone puts their hand up. I go, you 2 guys, show me what you do. And one guy will say, you want to attack me? And then one guy will always put his head down to let the guy put his arm around it, right? And what that is that's the muscle memory. There's no such thing, but the brain's the neural pattern of if I'm going to get out of a headlock, then my head needs to be here. It's late. So what I tell people is like, it's like if I showed you how to get out of a hangman's noose. I showed you a secret to fucking do that. And you went, yeah, that'd be fucking good. I go, or I'll teach you how to drop the guy while he's fucking holding the rope, tying a knot. Like, which one makes you safer?
Yeah, I don't want to be in the noose.
Right. And so this is like, as a visual cartoony metaphor, is understand how to intercept the headlock. And I understand it's
still might be in the headlock, sure.
Right. You still need, that's what I'm saying, is you still need to understand that. But once you understand that, and it's a place where you start technique and learning position. But the real value is intercepting. The most dangerous fighter is the counter puncher. So if you're in front of Dwayne and he's here like this, and you're going, oh fuck, I got to watch that leg kick, right? And then you're trying to take him down, and he fucking shin kicks you before, because he's reading your body language when you're starting.
Well, like Anderson Silva was a counter puncher,
right? And the most dangerous fighters in the world, because you don't see the counter puncher, because he's inserting that shot in between something that you're doing. So,
yeah.
Anyways, wild tangent there, because we were talking about the 60s.
No, it's you were having flashbacks,
right? Well, you just asked me like how it all started. It was I grew up afraid of everything, but I noticed I was introspective enough to go, why am I afraid? Why am I afraid? But it was the 60s and 70s. You don't put your hand up and go, hey, coach, I'm fucking afraid of, I don't know what I'm afraid of.
And I grew up in the 80s and you didn't do that.
Right. Well,
most people still don't do it now.
Right. No, and that's why this No Fear seminar that I'm doing I'm so passionate and obsessed with, because I really believe that if we taught kids and adults to change their relationship with fear, we change their life.
Yeah, I have some rules for my kids. Just basic rules. Like number 1, you have to do jiu-jitsu. Number 2, they have to learn how to swim. Number 3, they have to look people in the eye, demand respect, give respect back. And number 4, if they're scared, then that's the trigger. They have to do it. Right. So they're going to like that fear thing is like, no, I'm not trying to teach my kids that they're not going to be afraid. Of course they're going to be afraid. Right.
That's great.
But like, if you're afraid, then whatever you're afraid of, let's go. I'm going to go with you. Like, we're going to do this together. I'm going to not that I'm always going to be there. Right. But you have to be there with them. Definitely in the beginning.
More importantly, what you demystify, you're taking the mask of fear off, and you're realizing that fear is this anticipation of failure or pain or danger.
Right.
And it's funny because there's a maxim that I use, and I think I got it out of a book years ago, but if we didn't fear fear, what would we do? So it's really our fear of fear. It's the fear of the sensation. Now, listen, people ask me about some stuff, and I tell them, you cannot be brave if you're not afraid. So the act of courage, the ability to be, so if you got a friend who's like a complete adrenaline junkie and he says, hey, let's go skydiving. And you're like, no, I'm afraid. Oh, you pussy, you fucking badass. No, I don't want to jump out of an airplane, man. I'm afraid of heights. And there's some things you don't have to do. But the idea of that if you did it, it's not that you're trying to understand skydiving. It's you're developing the muscle of courage. And that is trying to understand and doing things that you're afraid of. And go ahead.
No, you got to finish.
No.
All right. So it's funny you bring up the skydiving thing because I had a friend, Tyler Turner, fought in the UFC. We came up together, and man, when after 3 or 4 fights, I called him, I was like, hey, what are you doing today? He's like, oh, I'm going skydiving. I was like, why are you going skydiving? He's like, man, I just want to see if anything can make me as afraid as fighting.
Wow.
He just wanted no, it didn't.
It didn't. Wow. Nope. It's so funny because you must have seen the original Point Blank.
Yeah, of course.
Point Break.
Yeah.
So I saw that with a friend of mine in Montreal when it came out, and it was the skydiving part was so amazing. I don't like heights at all.
Okay.
And I turned to my buddy Richard and I went, dude, if skydiving looks like that, we got to go. And he looks at me, he goes, I'm afraid of heights. I'm fucking more afraid of heights than you. And this chair is too high actually right now. Right. So we're laughing and I go, he goes, should we do it? I go, let's fucking go tomorrow. Let's fucking just do it while we're excited. So he says, I'm in. So we do this thing. We leave the movie, go online, find a place, call. Yeah. You come in tomorrow, 8 a.m. So I set my alarm for 6 o'clock because we got to drive there. I call him in the morning. He goes, I can't do it, man. I didn't sleep all night. I was fucking scared. I said, dude, are you fucking kidding me? I went out there and it was a static line jump.
What's that mean?
That means you jump out of the airplane and a cord deploys the parachute for you. So you don't have to pull. You got to get trained to go, free diving.
Right.
But so I do that. And it was so fucking scary, and it happened so fast, and you're only at 3,000 feet, that I did it. And I was like, that wasn't real. So I had this bug in my head, and I was teaching out in Snohomish, Washington. And I went out there, and I had custody of my son. My girlfriend and I had broken up, and he was like 6 or 7 months old, and we're out there. And I'm just now obsessed with doing this, and I'm scared shitless, and I'm obsessed. And I went to a place that would do tandem jumping, and I left my son, not knowing if I was going to live or die. I left him with pretty much a virtual stranger.
Did you keep custody after that shit?
Somebody I knew. Nobody knew about this. I only talked about this years later. It's like, by the way, custody judge, is this okay to do? And so I left him with like a friend of the family. I said, hey, I'll be back in a couple hours. If I'm not back, here's some numbers to call. I go there. They give me this fucking stack of releases because now I'm going to do a tandem jump, 12,500 feet. They go, read this and sign it. I go, I'm not reading it because if I read it, I won't go. So I'm just going to sign it. And I go up there, we fly up there.
It's like a mortgage, right? Like they give you all these papers to read. You're like, fuck
except
you, man.
In the mortgage, it says you could die on every page.
Right.
Sorry, on the skydiving thing. So I'm up there and I'm doing a tandem jump, and I'm sitting there and going, I'm about to jump an airplane. I don't even have a parachute. The guy I'm clipped to with D-rings has a parachute on. What am I fucking doing? Your fucking kid, he's 7 months old. He's with a stranger. Are you fucking... So I'm up there. They start circling over the drop zone. I look at the guy, the guy I'm jumping with. I go, hey, man, how you doing? He says, pretty good. I said, how's life? He goes, good. I go, everything good at home? Like, suicidal thoughts or anything? He smiles. He goes, no. He says, the narcolepsy, so the meds are okay for that, so I shouldn't fall asleep during the jump. I'm like, fuck, a skydive. He's like making fun, right? They open the door.
Do they at least tell you where the cord is in case something happens to that motherfucker?
Look, I don't even have one on you.
Yeah, but he does, right? So where's his cord?
You can't fucking reach.
Oh, fuck.
So dude, so get this. They open the door, and the sound of the wind at 12,000 feet is not like something you get on your phone on digital air wind sound. So you're there like this. He says just before we open the door, he says turn around. He clips me in, and I remember thinking, because I'm always thinking a little tactically, right? I am a safety consultant. I'm like this. He's clipped onto me, and what I do is I nonchalantly lean forward so I hear click the D-rings, just in case he was tricking me when he says jump, right? So we finally jump out, and it was fucking insanely amazing. I was high for a week from it. But anyways, it's my skydiving.
No, it's all good.
It was listen, and I won't go again. But here's what I tell people. I remember I was doing a contract at Fort Bragg, and I got in a couple of days early. And one of the guys said, "Hey man, we're going jumping today. Do you want to go?" And I'd already done this. And I said, "No, I'm good, man." He says, "Aren't you like some fear management expert?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "So why don't you come skydiving, man? You're fucking afraid." I said, "I'm managing my fear by not going." Right. And he laughs. I said, "So you don't have fear?" And this is an important thing for guys listening, because people who aren't afraid can't coach you on managing fear. So if you've got a coach who understands mindset and fear, he can get in your head and help you perform. If you got somebody who has absolutely, there's just that outlier, they're not afraid of the violence in any way or the outcome, that person can't give you some sports psychology advice, because they just don't understand what you're going through. But I looked at this guy who was at over 500 jumps, and I said, "You don't have any fear when you go diving?" He says, "I fucking love it. I go every time I can." I said, "Well, let me ask you a question. Would you let me pack your chute for you?" And before you answer, I know nothing about packing parachutes. He goes, "Fuck you. I'm not letting you touch my chute." And I said, "There's your fear." In other words, I can change part of your ritual. I can change part of your setup, and that changes your rhythm, and that can produce some anxiety.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I want to go back. I want to talk about, like you said, you lost everything.
Yeah.
Right. And what was that like? How'd you lose everything? And how'd you get, like, a lot of times, so 2007, what was that? 12 years ago, let's say. Right. So, so you weren't, it's not like you were a kid. Like, it's easy to lose everything when you're 20, you don't have anything.
Right.
But losing everything at 40, at 45, that sucks.
It was actually, that all happened in 2010. I moved to the States in 2007. Okay. My gear, we did a $17 million deal with the U.S. Army. I designed this gear. It took me 5 years to produce it, and 2 years to work this contract. And they were using it for their force on force. And then Obama got elected and took all the funding away from the military. There's the military sequestration and all this stuff, and the contract stopped. And I was a partner in the partner I had in the U.S. ran $1 billion defense logistics company, massive. And they basically, all I was I thought like, oh, this is my partner, but all I was like, I was an asset that was now a liability. And they owned like it's $1 billion company, right? And so they put in motion a way to sell off the equipment to another company. And they had decided to do it with or without me. Because who was I? I had a green card. I was a guy from Canada. And now this mega $1 million military thing fell through.
And if you want to try to take them to court, they'll just outweigh you in lawyers.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, it was
$1 billion. Yeah.
It was insane. And that
might be right. And you might be able to win the case, right? But you couldn't get there because they're going to motion.
You would die and lose. And I was told, I was literally told that when I hired a lawyer, they said, you don't have enough money to fight this case, and you will lose what's left of your hair and all of your sanity.
Right.
You know,
so you lose it all.
So I literally went from, running a $12 million, those who were doing domestic company with 12 employees. And I had a 20,000 foot facility. I had the world's biggest CrossFit gym inside there. I had an octagon. I had a bag area. I had an air conditioned 80 seat air conditioned classroom. We were doing contracts, military. I went from running that and making a very large salary per year on Friday to zero on Monday. In 3 days, everything was gone. 2 weeks later, dissolved the company. I had 3 people I had mentored who had been working for me for 8 years, who literally thought, okay, Tony's done. And rather than, and these are people I lent money to, I trained, I mentored, and not one of them said, hey, boss, are you okay? Can we help? All of them just went, okay, company's done. And one guy created a copy of my high gear, completely ripped it off. Two other guys went after my old contracts. And it was like insane. So I was getting hit over here with all the legal stuff. And then finding like the people, my trusted colleagues were like, oh, as selfish as you could be. And that hurt me more. The other stuff, it took me 5 years to get over the business attack, emotionally, psychologically. But I still haven't fully recovered from the betrayal of people that I trusted. People who had keys to my house, who I got pictures of them with my kids growing up on their shoulders, and because we're on training trips, and I used to do all my courses myself. And so they, while I was mentoring, they were there and fucking hanging out, or, taking them out for dinner, all this shit. Anyways, that was hard, man. It was hard. It took me years to realize that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I was naive I was romantic about people and business, and I trusted everybody. As a coach right through my soul. And then when it happened, I was like, okay, what did I do to make this happen? I was like, it was bullshit.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, right? What did you do? Everyone, what the 2 things that you just said right there, one is the best thing that ever happened to you, and 2, what did you do to make it happen? Right? Because if you want to put all the blame, and this is such a huge problem that we like to put all the blame on our bad shit on other people. Well, man, what the fuck are you going to do? How can you stop other people from doing shit to you?
Right. Well, this is an interesting thing. I was being interviewed yesterday in a podcast from Australia, and after we ended the talk, the guy brought up one of the people that had ripped me off in business. Okay. I just want you to know, just full disclosure, my original introduction to reality-based self-defense came from this guy, and I know there's bad blood between you two. And I said, let me stop you right there. when people say there's bad blood between me and the guy that made a copy of High Gear, that's fucking bullshit. That's like saying, hey, I heard your house was broken into last night and some burglars stole all your shit, and now there's bad blood between you two. Like, don't insult me by saying there's bad blood between me and the fucking intellectual property thief or the product thief or whatever.
Right.
Having said that, I'm tracking where you were. As a person who's continually trying to evolve emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, I spend a lot of time going, I could have done this different. What do I do here? Meditating on and introspecting on that. And then at the end of the day, I go, listen, nothing I did, this person was already predisposed to do what they did. That's on them. Could I have kissed their ass more? Could I have paid them more? Could I have been more touchy-feely, whatever? But it's really like anything for anyone listening to this, anything that happens to you in life. We all want our days to be fucking hunky-dory and amazing all the time, but life is a roller coaster ride. And I was like metaphorically make a joke, it's a giant classroom where, the events of your day are the teachers but you're also the teacher because you get to grade your day. Oh, I had an A for effort, but I had an F for attitude. Like I tried hard, but I was bitching the whole time. Right. And so, okay, like, do you want to have an F in attitude? Like fucking get your shit together. Right. Okay. I had a good attitude, but I wasn't trying, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. All of that. Right. I don't let anybody have my day, Tony. That's how I roll. No one gets my day. It's mine. My wife can't have my day. Like the only thing that can ruin it is I guess if like somebody really close to me died, that would ruin my day. But other than that, not happening because I know it's under my control. Like how I react to the situations, my attitude to everything is my day.
And that's a constant, you've got to constantly be working on it until you get to that. Like I'm one of my,
I fuck up all the time.
Right. But you catch yourself because of self-awareness.
Yeah.
That's the lesson for anyone listening to this. That's the biggest lesson. So one of my things is if I feel like somebody isn't, it's like I open doors for people and I hold doors for people. And when somebody doesn't do it for me, depending on my mood, I'm like, hey, does it look like I fucking work here? Does it look like I'm the doorman? And that person might be the most selfish person walking through and they're an asshole, but they might have also got the worst news in the world and they're like just myopically walking through and it wasn't personal. It's our choice to make it personal, and then that ruins this next second or minute of our day.
And then, man, like if you let that person stop you from opening doors for the next person, right? Like that's just not. Then now you're letting somebody else fuck with your soul, right? Because you're a door opener. I'm not saying everyone has to be a door opener. Maybe that's not your thing, but you're a door opener, and now you're like, you know what, man, that motherfucker, he didn't say thank you, and he didn't acknowledge me, and man, maybe he just found out he had cancer.
Right. That's
right. You have no fucking clue what's going on. That guy just had the worst day, got the worst news of his life, and you're pissed off because he didn't say thanks.
Right.
And now you're not going to open the door for the next person.
Right. And this is a fun talk because I've brought this up and you see people get emotional. Yeah, I fucking hate that too. I go, listen, why are you opening the door? You're opening the door because you're a good person, because those were the manners you were taught and that makes sense to you. So do it for yourself. Don't do it for the thank you, motherfucker.
It's what everyone thinks. There's no such thing as pure altruism, in my opinion. You're altruistic because it does make you feel good too. Right. It's not just like, oh, you're fucking Buddha or Jesus or whoever, and like, you're just like, oh, I'm only here for other people.
Reminds me of you ever watch Larry David?
No.
Oh my God. But there's an episode on there where they're doing a fundraiser and donations, and he finds out that somebody donated a whole bunch of money, but they wanted to remain anonymous. And he does this whole skit on like, no, you don't. I need to know who this was. Like, you can't. It's like, because it's never pure altruism.
It's never true altruism. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, man. I got to go work on myself. I got therapy. So,
dude, good.
Yeah, every week, Wednesday noon my time. If you're ever wondering where I am, Tony, if I'm in Colorado, I'm sitting on a couch. talking to my therapist.
Well,
so.
good for you for being open about it and focused on improving yourself. And you sound like you're a great dad. And I'm so glad we reconnected, man.
Yeah, man, for sure. Let's stay in touch, man. I really appreciate the talk. And like, I'm digging what you're into, especially the know your fear. That's some cool shit, man.
Yeah. I'll send you more stuff on that.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it. And I'll send you, it's going to come out next Monday. And I'll send you the link and everything for social media and stuff.
Perfect. Okay.
You're the man, bro. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Take care.